Hey guys, Rexasaur here, and welcome to another episode of What is Warhammer Lore. In this episode, I will be doing a very rough overview of the old world and of its, of the factions within the old one. So that basically, because I've talked a lot about whole Warhammer and what the factions are going to be in the game, I thought it would be nice to show you what the other factions around the whole world of Warhammer is and what you can expect from the later expansions of the game if they're going to add new factions, which I'm pretty sure they will. So I have up a world map of the old world so that everyone can see, and as you can see, once again, it is very, very similar to how the current world looks. Well, I mean current world, but like our world. It is very based upon it. But it's still very different. So let me tell you a very small history lesson, a very small rundown of how the old world exists and stuff. Before everything, there was something called the Old Ones, and the Old Ones were basically the people who created magic, who didn't create magic, but they basically lived before everything else, and then they disappeared. Like no one knows why, they just disappeared. From the Old World came but after the Old Ones, there were three main races: the Elves, the Lizard Men, and the Dwarves. These span hundreds of miles of empires and stuff. Ulth 1 is where the elves come from. The elves, in the current state of the lore, are split into three factions. You have the High Elves, who live in Ulth 1, and then you have the Dark Elves, who are basically a split off. They had a civil war because one side worshipped Cain and wanted to kill everyone. I'm pretty sure it was something like that. Can't entirely remember. That might be wrong, might be right. It may be way too basic. There was probably massive background thing onto that. When I present the Dark Elves, I will go more into depth. I'll read on it to make sure that everything's up to date. But I'm pretty sure because they worship Cain, which is like the god of blood and like slaughter or whatever. That's not to be confused with the chaos god Khorne. Cain is mostly related to assassinations and evilness and stuff like that. I don't know. I'll read up on it. The High Elves, however, obviously are less worshipy of that kind of god and are way more like highborn kind of thing. They're really elegant. They like to, they're there to defend their beaches. Basically, they hate everything that isn't, that is evil. And they're basically just trying to keep to themselves at this point. They're not doing much invasion and stuff. They're really on a defensive, and they will defend against chaos and other stuff. High Elves are also incredibly versatile in magics. Their wizards know every single law of magic, so they know all 8 winds, for example. Elves use the winds of magic just like the Empire do, as I've talked about in my magics video, and things like that. The Lizard Men live in a land called Lustria, which is basically what's it called? It's basically Argentina kind of region. All the way up through Brazil kind of thing. And I'm using like real world names so that you know around about where I mean. And they're basically based on the Aztecs, but they're lizard men. So you can expect things like plumage, feather, hats, and obviously not hats, but like, you know what I mean. And they're very Aztec-y, so their buildings look very Aztec-y. They got like pyramid kind of structures and things like that, and they are ruled on by what we call the Slan, who have a very big connection with the Old Ones and are very knowledgeable. They look like big frogs, and it's pretty cool. I think Lizard Men look fucking amazing. Personally, I think they look like badass, and they are really badass. However, they are lizards, and that means that they have the same kind of function lizards. So like they have cold blood, so they need to warm up. It's really kind of funny. But really awesome at the same time, and I think Lizard Men are pretty cool. And then of course you have the Dwarves, which we've gone through, who reigned, if I bring up the big map now, they reigned from all the mountain range from where you see the Empire in the center, all the way down to the southernmost tip of Africa. So yeah, all down there. Obviously I'm using real world, so those of you who do know the Warhammer lore and all that, don't have a go at me for using real world terms. It means that everyone knows where I'm talking about on the map, as long as they know basic geography. After the Old Ones was the coming of Chaos. After like all these things, the coming of Chaos, I will do a massive in-depth on the Chaos Gods and the Chaos Peoples, but let's just say that Chaos arrived, split all the forces and all that, and you know there was a massive like invasion stuff. The north and the south of the map, basically Arctic and Antarctic, are the wastelands. You have the Chaos Wastelands, Northern Wastelands, and the Southern Wastelands. They're basically, this is where the Chaos live. They've been secluded from everyone. It is, yeah, basically that's where they live currently. And they continue to do invasions down into the Empire, through Nazaroth, which is North America, Canada, basically. Nazaroth is where the Dark Elves live, by the way. And then they just, you know, they keep going down in small invasion of hordes and stuff like that. I will do a big video on those because they deserve a big video. Now, I haven't really gone into Orcs, men at the moment. And that is because the Orcs have always sort of been around. As you can see on the big map, the Badlands is much more visible, but it sort of spans a little corner of basically next to what would be Greece and kind of like the Syria, Iraq kind of region. This is where they kind of exist. The Orcs basically originate from there, but I'm pretty sure they spun a lot of the Europe basically. And then when the Empire, the men basically, when Sigmar came, he broke it all up. Underneath the Empire on the big map, you can see Bretonnia. Bretonnia is basically based on the French, while the Empire is based on the Holy Roman Empire. So Bretonnia has a lot of horses, cavalry kind of thing. And in Bretonnia is a massive forest, which is where the Wood Elves live. So yeah, that's what happens in Europe. And the Orcs are all over the Badlands, all over Europe. They keep doing periodical invasions and wargs, like I've told you in a previous video. Then we have the Undead. Now, the Undead are split into two factions. You have basically in the tabletop, well, the wet and the dry Undead. The wet Undead being things like zombies, ghouls, and basically everything vampire counts. And they belong in a very small sector of the Empire called Sylvania, like we've seen. And there's also the Tomb Kings. Now, Tomb Kings are based on Egypt and ancient Egypt, so they have pharaohs kind of thing, you know, they have skeleton archers, that they are dressed very Egyptian, ancient Egyptian like. And they do belong in Africa, in Araby and the land of the dead kind of area of Africa, or what would be Africa if they had current names. Now, all these originate from Nagash. Now, Nagash is a massive influence on the old world, because Nagash basically created, well, he was the first ever necromancer. He was the first being of pure evil and created the undead in both their forms. He created the armies of the Tomb Kings. I'm pretty sure it was basically the Egyptian people were actually men, and then he tricked them into becoming Tomb Kings. I will once again read on my facts when we come to do this faction. But they're a really, like, they basically were created by Nagash. So were the vampires. Well, like, subconsciously created by Nagash, the vampires were anyway. Then we come across my favorite race of them all, the Skaven. I play Skaven in the tabletop. They are my favorite race. I adore them so much. And the Skaven live in what's called the Under Empire, which is basically underneath the whole of the map is a massive intricate web of tunnels, of cities, massive cities sprawling with billions of rats. And these are rat men, so they're slightly smaller than men, but they're like massive rats basically. And they are the ultimate force of chaos. And well, but they're not chaos in the kind of way that if they all were together, they would overrule the whole world, no problem. But the thing is, they fight among themselves so much, and they are so undisciplined within each other. They all want to become the top rat. They all fight each other. To give you an analogy, they have what's called the Council of 13, and all of them are out to kill each other, and yet they're the leaders of the rat people. So, you know, it's the kind of, it's awesome. It's so awesome. I will do a massive video on the Skaven. I might do two because I adore the Skaven and you have to just talk about them so much. But I'm pretty sure every single person who plays a certain faction can talk about theirs for hours. But I won't do that. Next you have Ogres. Ogres are kind of a mercenary kind of unit. They're based on the Mongols, except that they're kind of the opposite of the Mongols kind of thing. Because Mongols were like hordes of horsemen. Ogres are like small hordes of like 6 people, because 6 ogres make up, in the tabletop, 6 ogres make up the equivalent of a 20 to 30 man unit, for example. So they're really big, but they're basically used as mercenaries a lot in the lore. In the lore, they're very mercenary kind of thing. And ogres span along the mountain ranges in the middle and next to the ogre kingdoms, as you can see on the map in like the big map in Mongolia kind of region. Then you have the other realms. Now the other realms are realms that aren't really explored much in the tabletop, but we know exist. These include things like Kiselv, which is basically based on Russia kind of thing, Scandinavia region, and they are humans. You also have Nippon, which is very, very stolen off Japan. It's basically samurais, except there are also like magical creatures. There's thunder dragons. It's actually a very big mix between Japan and China, which I'm sure the Chinese and the Japanese wouldn't like at all. But it's very, very split between each other. You also have things like Estelia, which is Spain, and then you have Araby, which is like the Arabian kind of thing. So there we go. That is the old world. That's all the factions that happen in the old world. It is a very big mix of a lot of people and factions. So we can expect, if there are expansions, like the thing is, like here we have the old map. It's like, if Total War was ever to expand the actual map, I would hate for them to put the whole map in it, because they would just never ever make it, like, give it justice. The game will have to be hundreds of gigs to fit in everything. I'm happy that they're doing it on the small scale of the Empire for the first expansion. Maybe the next expansion will have Ulthuan and Lustria kind of region. Maybe the next one will go a bit lower down, contain Bretonia and the Wood Elves and all that. Maybe I'll expand the map slightly to only have all of like what Europe is, and expand to the Northern Wastes and stuff. But I would hate them for them to expand to the whole map, because I don't think they could give it justice, in my humble opinion. So thank you very much for watching this episode of What Is. In the next episode, I will be going into Chaos. That sounds really like wrong, in the kind of way like Chaos is consumed me kind of way. I will be talking about the 4 gods of Chaos and what Chaos represent, just to help you along the way, kind of get your grasp of why Chaos is such a massive force in the old world, and why everyone fears it, and why a lot of the people, especially the Empire and Bretonia and the Elves, are all fighting against Chaos. So thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you next time.